Hello everybody and welcome to the shop. What I want to do tonight is Brad Solchin sent me a piece of, and I hope I pronounced your name properly, Brad, sent me a piece of dogwood, and it's just a gorgeous piece of wood. I mean, just take a look at it. I've never seen dogwood look like that before, so I'm wondering if maybe it has a little spalting going on. But tonight, I'm going to go ahead and turn this into a pin. I'm going to turn a slimline pin from this blank, and I specifically chose this side of the blank because I really like this pattern. I don't know how deep it goes into the blank, but I'm hoping it carries far enough through the blank that I can see a little bit of that once it's turned. I'm going to drill a 7mm hole down the center of this blank, and you can see right here there's a notch mark which coincides with this mark, and that lets me know that this is the interior of the pin or where the center band will be. I always like to start from the center band and drill out. That way the center bands line up, and if you get off a little bit, it doesn't matter so much. See how I'm off at the end? Which it's tough to drill straight through sometimes when the blanks are, you know, they're more of a rough cut blank, but that will not be a problem at all. This one will be the same. It'll be a little difficult, but I'm going to put this one in, instead of putting it at an angle like I do most of them, I'm going to put it straight up and down. And I don't know if that makes sense, but this particular pin vise has a couple of notches on it. And those notches, normally you put the blank in at an angle and the notches grip it. Well, since this one is such an oddly shaped blank, I don't know how well that'll work, so I'm just going to drop it straight down in to the vise, tighten it up, and I'll take a quick peek at it and make sure it's as vertical as it can be. And now I'll go ahead and drill it. There's the entry hole, there's the exit hole, and that one went pretty straight down through there. But we got plenty of meat, so we should be in great shape. Sometimes when you buy a pin kit, the tubes will come and they're pre-roughed up. In the case of this slimline kit, you can see that they're very shiny. We want to make sure the glue sticks well to these, so I always just take a piece of sandpaper and I just kind of roll them as I swirl them on the paper. And I get a whole bunch of scratches. You can see the difference. Now this is going to give the glue something to grab a hold of and help it get a better grip on the tube. You've seen me do this a lot lately, and I highly advocate doing this before gluing your tubes and your blanks, and that is to check each blank to make sure there are no obstructions and the tube can easily be inserted. Notice my hash marks. This is where the blank was connected prior to running it through the bandsaw. Now we're just going to put a little bit of medium CA on these tubes. There we go. Decent amount. Swirl it as we put it into the blank, and I'll tap it down just below surface. Lay it aside to dry. I like to keep the tube as close to the interior surface as possible, and that once again is just to ensure that we get a nice fit. Now in the shop, I have been trying very hard not to use activator whenever possible. I've been trying to let my CA dry naturally. I don't know if it makes a difference, but in my mind I feel like I get a better bond when I do that. So we're going to leave these blanks for a while. We'll come back later and prep them to turn. I've got my dogwood blank chucked up, and I noticed something while I was sanding. Take a look at this. What we're going to do is run a little thin CA glue down in there, and we're going to let that thin CA, I'll probably hit it with some activator, and just let it seal up real quick, just to hold that on there so I can turn it away. It's obviously not going to cause a problem with a slimline pin, but we want to make sure we try to avoid the flying object as much as possible, and we'll be sure to have our face mask on and down, covering our chin and chest area as best we can. Just going to lay an old rag down here just to kind of protect the mandrel, because I don't want to get CA glue on the bushings and then stick them to the mandrel. I've had that happen before, and it's not fun. Yeah, you can see it pouring out the side. It's getting down in there. Hit it with a little activator. We'll put a little more on there. I like this thin because it'll run right down in the cracks. You can see it really smoking like crazy. And the blank is really warm where it's boiling. Whoops, I slid it out of the frame. Take a look at the CA, how it dried there. I think that's going to be good enough. We'll keep an eye on it. If it starts to come apart, we will stop and add a little more glue to it. Well, the CA trick worked perfectly. The blank held together. It looks absolutely fantastic. We turned right past that crack in the wood. I am so happy with it. What I'm going to do now is my flip method. I'm going to flip the blanks over, sand them in between grits, and we're going to get this thing sanded up and finished. Sanded the pen down to 400 grit. I'm going to wipe it down with a little denatured alcohol. You'll also notice that I went ahead and put my non-stick bushings on the lathe. We'll just give this a couple of minutes to dry, and then we'll start applying our CA finish. That's two really quick coats. Just take a look at what we're starting to see. That's beautiful. I've never seen a piece of dogwood look like that. I'm assuming it's got a little spalting going on, and it is just absolutely incredible. I got about 3 more coats to go. I'm gonna shut the camera off for those. I'll come back when I'm ready to apply my medium CA. I've got 5 coats of CA on this blank, and it looks fantastic. A lot of people say, well, why do you put 5 coats? And I just kind of settled on that trial and error. The first coat literally disappears. It just sucks right down to the fibers of the wood. The second coat does about the same thing. The third, fourth, and so on, they start to kind of give me a little surface buildup. Not too much because it is thin CA, but it does get the blank nice and sealed and ready to accept some medium CA glue, which is what I use, a couple of coats of that, to put a nice outer shell on the pen. So let's go ahead and apply a coat of medium CA. You can see how much shinier it is. The medium CA will lay on the surface. Isn't that beautiful? I'm going to put 2 more coats, and then we're going to take a close look at this. And when I take a close look, I usually come over here to this side of the lathe, and I look down the pen at an angle, about a 45-degree angle, and you can see the light right there where it kind of shines on the blank. I use that as I rotate to look for imperfections. I'm looking for any divots in the blank, any grain, anything that might need to be filled, and I'll continue to apply coats of medium until I get that imperfection filled. This blank sanded up quite smooth. I don't know that there'll be much to worry about on this one. Let's put another coat of medium. All right, I got one more coat. I'm gonna go ahead and shut the camera off because I'm gonna let this spin for a while and dry naturally. And it may take a few minutes, so I'll come back, and once I get the last coat on, I'll come back when we're ready to start micromeshing. I've gone ahead and put my turning bushings back on the mandrel, and the reason why I do this right before I micromesh is just in case you get a tiny little lip of CA glue at the end of a blank, which can happen when you're using the nonstick bushings. This lets you micromesh that right down to the level of the bushing so that you can keep that perfect fit that you're looking for. That happens every now and then. Not a big deal. That's one reason why we use paper on the lathe as opposed to a rag, because when paper catches, if your finger happens to be wrapped in it, the paper will just tear apart and you're not going to pull your finger into the lathe. If you're using a piece of a t-shirt or an old rag and your finger is tangled up in it, it can pull your finger right into the lathe. And these machines, you know, even the small ones may not seem like there's a lot of power there, but once they get to pulling, they can really do some damage. Luckily, I've not had any issue. I've read and seen stories where people have, and I hope that never happens to any of you. All right, really happy with the blank. Look at that, it's got a nice shine to it right off the micromesh. Let me get my buffing pads on here, and we're gonna buff this thing up. It's been a while since I've assembled a Slimline kit. I believe I still remember how. We'll start with the nib. We'll press that into the front half of the blank. Bring that up to the camera for you, and you can see what I was talking about. Micro-meshing against those bushings really gives you a nice tight fit on your nib. Let's go ahead and press the cap into the pin before we have to adjust the pin press. We'll get it started here. There we go. Bring it up here. Let's take a quick peek at it. I really want that spalted area to show. I'm thinking this is the spot for the clip right here. Okay. Bring this up so you can get a good peek at it. And once again, it's just, I love when you get a good tight fit. I mean, people may not notice that when you give them the pin, but as a turner, that's something that you should notice on all your pins. You want to try to achieve the tightest fit you can get. Let's lengthen our pin press here. Let's go for the transmission. I hope that's enough. I think I got to take one more block out. There we go. We'll get the trans started. Push it up just about to the end of the brass. Got a little ball on the end of this refill. They've started doing that with the Slimlines, I guess. Not a bad idea. Bring that up to the camera where you can see it. It could stand to go out just a little bit farther. We're just going to give it a tap. I don't want to give it too much. This is where, there we go, those bushings that I made for the lathe for pressing pins together would come in real handy, because you can give it 1 or 2 twists and really just sort of dial it in. That's much better. Got a nice action. The transmission feels better than the normal transmissions. I wonder if they've changed suppliers or something with the kits, or maybe it's just my imagination, but it's really a smooth operation. Let's go ahead and slide our trim ring onto the pin. Put the top section on. Bring it up here for you to see. It's just gorgeous. That wood is just stunning. Take a look at the fit if we can. There we go. Get it to dial in. Look at that, right up next to the trim ring. Everything fits nice and tight. Smooth operation on the pin. Really happy with that one. I'd like to thank you for joining me in the shop tonight. I really enjoyed turning this piece of dogwood. I think it made a beautiful pin. I want to say a special thanks to Brad Solchin for sending this to me. Thank you so much, Brad. I hope you guys enjoyed the video as much as I enjoyed making it for you. I want you to know that you are always welcome in my shop. Come back and see me again real soon. Take care, everybody.